Member McMorrin.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Ryan, and it's a pleasure to serve under your chairship. And can I also thank the thousands in my constituency of Cardiff North who signed the petition to defend democracy and against this prorogation. It is certainly not in keeping with this, and it's not in the spirit of our values as an open, free and transparent parliamentary democracy. Although when I talk about transparency in this instance, it's not hard for anyone to see the motive behind the Prime Minister. It's a blatant act of trickery by the Prime Minister and those around him in number 10, designed not only to shield a weak and divided government from the wave of dissatisfaction among members of Parliament across this House, as well as homes across the country. And it is a disingenuous act. This Prime Minister makes as much fanfare of our parliamentary democracy as well as lauding historic figures who led our country through past emergencies. But whilst he might try and compare himself to those who held the highest office before him and draw comparisons between their strife and his own, the situation we find ourselves in now is entirely of his own making. And indeed, his attempt to subvert democracy in this way is not at all fitting of those comparisons to any of the figures that he holds in such high esteem, or indeed the office of Prime Minister. And we know that these events that we've seen in the last days and weeks have stretched the capacity of our constitutional norms. But what have they taught us? A Prime Minister that is prepared to flout the limits, to stretch those limits of democracy and abuse the parliamentary system. And I think, actually, that urgent reform is needed. I would agree with my colleagues that have gone before me. Urgent reform is needed, and that is a debate perhaps not for today, but for another day. But in kicking out, the Prime Minister, in kicking out those MPs, in dismissing them out of his party and locking the door by suspending Parliament, he is also denying my constituents in Cardiff North the right for their voice to be heard. And in silencing the voice of MPs, he is silencing a nation too. And people and businesses in Cardiff North, they all tell me this. They came up to me at the weekend. They want to know what is going on. Why is the Prime Minister doing this to our country? Why is this government doing this? They're worried about their future and how this impacts them. They are worried about the path to no deal, the path to a really devastating no deal which could take them on a path and their livelihoods, their families, all impacted. And all this takes place in the eye of the storm amidst this growing emergency, this national crisis, where people actually, they expect us to be present here. They want us to be here, standing up for them, working hard to resolve this crisis. And by suspending Parliament, as has been said before me, that means the bills, they fall by the wayside. Those important bills that have been talked about, that we've all worked hard on. The Environment Bill that's already been mentioned, the Agricultural Bill that's already been mentioned. I have my own bill that will fall by the wayside. That's on plastics and packaging, extending the producer's right, responsibility, extending that responsibility to make sure that the packaging that they produce is far more environmentally friendly, to make them stand up and take notice. But that falls by the wayside. What will happen then? I've just come from a meeting with climate protesters who are here in Parliament meeting their members of Parliament. There were tens, if not hundreds of them there today. What does that What does the message suspending Parliament send to the country, send to the world? What, that we don't care about the climate emergency? I'm afraid the climate emergency does not stop just because Boris Johnson wants to massage his own ego and get on with crashing us out of a no deal. Apologies, Mrs. Ryan. I'll use the word Prime Minister from now on. So, but I'll give way.
For the Honourable Lady who's given way, if she's referring to the event in the Churchill Room, that's actually the Climate Extinction, the Extinction Rebellion Sutton group that have organised it, hosted by me, which is why I had to come over here. But there's perfectly ability to go and meet these people, as I did in organising it, in my constituency and bringing that back over a period of time so we can still do our work, not just here.
She wishes to use the phrase "the right honourable member for Uxbridge." That will also be perfectly accepted.
She might prefer Prime Minister.
I thank you. Yes, thank you very much,
Anna McMorrin.
Mrs. Ryan. Thank you. I thank the member for his intervention there, and absolutely, my job, and has been all summer, and whenever this place is in recess, is working on all of those issues, as we all do in our constituencies. But do you know, stopping Parliament from sitting means we stop that vital legislation. It means we stop scrutinising the government on what action they are taking on this climate emergency. And we need action. It's all very well to have words, but we need action on this. And that needs to be at the highest level. I'm afraid, well, OK, if he wants to give way.
The Honourable Lady, she's been very generous. Does she agree with me that we didn't hear a lot of that call for action and scrutiny about all of these other issues over the summer recess when we could have been talking about any number of things?
Anna McMorrin.
I thank the member for his intervention. I don't really understand it because Parliament wasn't sitting. We all called for that during the summer. I met with my own protesters in my own constituency. I've also held various events in my own constituency through recess. But anyway, I will continue. And this is exactly why I will not stand idly by whilst our country is run roughshod over by a Prime Minister in freefall. A Prime Minister who will now use this time to roam the country, electioneering using public money. And prorogation, suspension or not, his attempts to silence us will not work. And I am here to protect the livelihoods, the futures, the businesses of my constituents. With a threat as big as no deal looms large, with the government choosing ruin over delay, I will continue to do whatever I can by joining forces with my colleagues to protect those vital jobs, services, communities and livelihoods. And I will continue to campaign and to fight for what I personally believe is the best solution to this crisis we find ourselves in. And that is putting this decision back to the people for a final say over the future of Brexit. And I will be campaigning firmly and loudly to remain as a full member of the European Union.
Jeremy